All right, we're going to try this again. After this morning's failed attempt, I want to make sure I get a quality recording out there. So here we go. Today, what we're looking at is recreating a viz from Tableau Public. About to share my screen here. So we have Pradeep's sample Superstore Viz, quite well known. It came up on a list or an article by Tableau for having some of the most views in all of Tableau Public. So I'm going to start with this as my goal to um, build each one of these elements as a Viz extension. And um, I'll use or direct Claude to accomplish that. And so what I have here, the pre-work on this is just to get some prompts built out of Claude Desktop. And then I'm going to start a new project. I have this new project here. I'm going to start VS Code and we will see how this comes out. So this is a brand new project. There's nothing in the folder. I'll start a new Claude session. I'm going to use Fable as my model. So this is Fable 5 right now. What I generally would do is plan with Fable. I'd run the plan through this setting here. And then I would build with Claude 4.8. Right now, Claude 5 is, or sorry, not Claude 4.8, but Opus 4.8. And right now, the current Opus model is 5, but I haven't, I've preferred 4.8, so I haven't used 5 more than just initially. So if you can't find, so if you hit switch model, you're not going to see 4.8 in here. So here's a little trick. If you do slash model space Claude dash opus dash 4-8, then you'll be able to get that opus model. Let me zoom in here. So, but I'm going to use Fable on this. I'm not going to do the plan mode. I'm just going to jump in because I've kind of planned the prompts through Cloud Desktop here in this session. So what this first prompt is going to do, let's get some of this closed up, is it's gonna set the stage, this project stage, for the rest of the Viz extensions to build. So this will be like a parent level project with child folders and directories. Each child or each Viz will have its own child directory within the parent folder. So this first prompt is to set up the parent folder. And I've got Fable on, so I'm just going to run this. While that's running, we'll get started on the workbook. So to use the Viz extension, you're just going to build that into a regular Tableau desktop workbook. So I'm just going to say This is a new workbook. I'm going to connect to the sample Superstore data set. And we'll see. Actually, I'm going to change this because I downloaded the data from Pradeep's directly from his Viz to try to get as close to that as possible. So I've got that in a download here, CSV. And so that pulls in, we'll go to sheet 1. So this is staged. Here's where we can add Viz extensions. What was happening earlier today when we attempted this, it was building dashboard extensions when I had wanted to showcase the Viz extensions, and it actually was building just straight HTML web-based elements, which Viz extensions and dashboards use. They're basically web elements, but it wasn't building like the Tableau extension portion of that, which is the T-Rex file, and that's what goes into desktop. So that's where it was failing on me this morning. Hopefully we'll see some better results today or this evening. So let's go back to here. It's going to run for a little bit for sure. Let me see. So one of the first things it was asked to do also was to set up the localhost server. So it says start kit server on 47653. So we can see that starting to build here. The directory is here, but nothing is running out of the directory yet. We can see here there aren't any files. So this will take a little bit. Might I had a timer going last time as well. Pull that up, start it. Set for 55 minutes. Just want to make this smaller. So we're getting some things built here. Actually, this in here. All right. We can see some folders, some directories and things coming in. Starter and a reference. Then if we refresh here, we see them here where the server is running. Not too much here to do yet. Then while this is running, I will show generally the process for us to create or embed a Viz extension or open a Viz extension. We're going to be working off of a local Viz extension, and so we'll use this setting when that opens. I have some others here that have been loaded before, so I'll just grab one of those. There's an error in it. Let me see. I didn't plan on which of those I should pull. So let me see. I can get a better one. This is hosted at Tableau Ops. I was asked earlier, like what where I prefer to host or have my Viz extensions. So the options you have are to pull it directly from the Exchange, so Tableau Exchange, where developers have published their extensions, or partners have published extensions there. Other options are S3 and S3 bucket that's provisioned or secure, where security is applied, that only allows like Tableau Cloud and maybe your local machine to access. So you can publish just the HTML files and JavaScript files directly on a S3 bucket, and it runs great. Another option is like Cloudflare file hosting, where it also can be white, like the Tableau Cloud IPs can be whitelisted. So then I've also set up Tableau Ops, which is an easy to use host. So show that real quick. This is still running, we can see. Let's go ext.tableuops for extension.tableauops.com. There are a bunch of resources here. Some are free, so like there's skills. There's a web or a workbook analyzer to help, trim down some excessive fields and calculations and things that might be in one of your workbooks, make it more efficient. And then there are pre-built extensions you can purchase here. But hosting is easy if you're logged in. Logging in is super easy. You don't have to create to create an account. All you do, you put your email in and you're going to get a code. You log in. That's it. Pretty simple. And then you'll have this page. Getting an extension here is also super easy. So I have, let me see. Here's a workshop I did previously. Extensions. So I have all of these extensions have been built previously. I haven't tested these specifically, but if I take one of these and just drop the folder right onto my like that file drop area, then it will take a folder or a zip, and it will parse out the files that it needs to run the extension. We'll see if this works. It's not going to work because it's not really, this one's not set up to run outside of Tableau, but that's how easy it is to get your extension published and hosted. Then to use it in your workbook, you just click this download and it generates the T-Rex file that's connected to this host. So we'll see in a minute how we're gonna import the T-Rex files. And so that's what you would do with this file that I just downloaded. So let's show, I want to show an extension that does run in the live preview. This one is just the barbell. So this is kind of a way to test or preview what the extension looks like a little bit. It's not as built out as you would see it in Tableau, but just kind of a general preview there. It's nice to see. So let's see where this is going. Okay, so this initial scaffolding is running. I'm going to look now back at the initial prompt. It has quite a bit. So first it says start the server on that IP or port. So that's there. Then it's gonna generate the scaffolding. So like the structure of the files and the directories. We'll go in, and then this is um, setting up how the child extensions will work with the parent. Because the server will run at the parent level, and so all of the child like files and T-Rex files need to be set up with that parent kind of structure in mind. So that's what this is doing here. So that was the first prompt. Then we have the B. Let me see. We have B, which is getting into the actual extensions. So every extension has its own prompt, but I will run uh, this full prompt in one prompt. What it's actually describing is to have Claude create a sub agent for every Viz extension. So they'll all be building in parallel. And this kind of describes how the agent um, of the sub agents should set that up and run. Let's look back here. Still running. It has quite a bit of structure here now. Let's see. 45 minutes. This should be about the last step before we get something we can start to work with. So there is a Viz starter here, and the sales banner has already been generated. I'm going to start with those while this is still building some of that scaffolding. So if I go back to my desktop, I'll leave that here. I'll call this header. And again, this is going to be a Viz extension. So you'll use the marks area, do the drop down, and select add extension. Then access a local Viz extension. And then I'm going to navigate to this project, which will be latest. So this is tonight's folder. So the sales banner is in the first Viz. So like I was saying, I was downloading that file from Tableau Ops, and it's a T-Rex file. That's actually what Tableau Desktop uses to read from the HTML. It's kind of it directs Tableau where to look for the HTML and JavaScript files. So I'll open that. It gives you some information, especially what I usually check is the extension URL. That's where the HTML elements are, or the web elements are hosted from. This one, localhost we have. So hit OK. What you get, like this is a splash screen that gets built with a Viz extension. It's just direction on how to use the marks cards. And so first, this one says category. So you drop a dimension, it's required. A value, you drop a measure, it's required. And then a color is optional. So I will start with a category. It's even named category, so I'll do that. And then I was expecting the top header banner. This might be different Viz, but expecting from Pradeep's version, it's a sales area chart. So I don't think this is going to be that, which it's not the header, but so I'll pull a value in sales. We'll just see what this builds. Okay, so this is actually, I can go back to this. So this is the sales by category section right here. So I'll just call it that. And we'll leave that there. We'll do all of the Viz extensions and then build the final dashboard when that's ready. So then I'm curious what Viz starter is. It might be the full thing in one Viz. So let's pull that in. It might actually be a dashboard extension. So we'll try this first. Let's see if it works, but I might need to change it to a dashboard extension. So we'll see what happens here. It is a Viz extensions, category value, and color. Looks like it's going to be the same as the category one I just built. Yeah. Interesting. I'm not sure what it was, what was in the prompt that directed this, but it was there and it built that. Looks like it's got a bunch of checks and things for building it this time, which was part of what was missing. Lost this morning. Still building through this initial scaffolding. So let's see what it understands from. Kind of get an update on what's been done. Scaffolding server, scaffold with the Viz starter, placeholder for sales banner. Oh, it just is cloning. That's why. So it created the Viz starter and it's going to use that as the start template for every Viz extension that it builds separately after that. So, and then it looks like there's a monitor to, I did ask it, I wanted to see the live building within the browser. So we'll see how that works. That's what this monitor, yeah, it's given us now the URL or the directory to see that monitor. I'm gonna go there real quick. Okay, cool. So this is going to represent each of the Viz extensions as they build. So I asked it to show me live from Claude an update to each of the extensions while they built, kind of preventing some of what happened this morning was, waiting for 30 minutes and then not getting what I expected. So this will be able to see it building along the way. And close this. Looks like So that full first prompt is completed. So we have the monitor, we've got the Viz starter that it's going to use on each extension. The shared contract will help the agents all work in coordination. And then some of the status here. All right, so I'll drop in the next prompt here. Let me grab that. All right, so we are going to start the next prompt. Let's see our timer. We're at 35 minutes. Doing good on time, I think, maybe. Actually took quite a bit of time, but let's do the next prompt. I'm going to grab that from where I have it. Prompt B, orchestration. Fan out is what it's calling the agent, the sub-agent process. It's going to fan out to all of the sub-agents. And let's see, so the 8, 6, 5, 3. So each process or each extension has its own little paragraph. So run that. Then I'm going to start just building out some of this. So I know there will be 7 or 8 sheets. I'm going to say, I might show that later. So sales by category. This. Let's see if I make it smaller. Shows up better, but I can't seem to be able to zoom in on it. But just gonna move the dashboard down to the end. So we got sales by category. Sheet 3, I'm just going to call 1. I don't know where sales by category fits, but I can look at this. Compare bars. Okay. Let's call that 1, whatever that is. 2 is going to be the region. Spark lines. 3, the map. So geography, geomap. Let's just do map. 4 will be the comparisons. All right. 5 is the trend trellis. So that is, oops, that will be this. It's reloading. That will be this section here. It's not, doesn't want to scroll. Sales trend by category. So let's do 5 trellis. Category sales. Sales trend 6 is the dot timeline. So this is the dot timeline that's sales by subcategory. 6 subcategory. Sales dots. 7 is, so it's going to build this one, and if from the previous attempt, it's going to want to build this one as a lollipop chart. So that's just sales by segment. So lollipop. That's why 7 lollipop, 8 ranked bars. Probably these manufacturers. We'll go with manufacturers, and then that's all it has for those. Yeah. I forgot we have the updates. They are all saying queued, but I'm going to hit a refresh. Let's see if anything's going. I told it that it shouldn't need a refresh, so maybe it's still just working on setup for those. See how that goes. Okay, so prompt C, that'll be the third. So it's saying the kit is already up, kit server. So that'll be the server that's running each of the extensions. We don't really need that. It's just setting up actual hosting for it. And I forgot that another big one is GitHub. You can use GitHub Pages to host your files. Probably even, I don't know. I don't want to say you can just use a repo, but I would say for sure you could use GitHub Pages, which is your generally where you might put a Tableau portfolio or just a general portfolio you would have on GitHub Pages. Pretty easy to set up and free. So you can host your web files there. And that's what this is prompting it to do. I'll skip that part. I'll probably skip that part just to run everything localhost. So we don't need the public hosting to do this. So none of these are showing any progress yet. It's actually moved it from, it's put it into the, looks like maybe the order. So it's got the banner at the top. This is going to be the region with spark lines and the map, somewhat in order. Let's see. This is still just getting through what is already existing. Looks like just looking at each of the manifest files that are in the starter and sales banner. All right, so we got the 8 manufacturer. Let's move this to the middle. I'm going to start working on this. So I think, yeah, 1300 by 1850, if I remember correctly. And I'm going to drop a vertical container, floating, layout, 0, 0, and 1300 by 1850. so that will be our base container. Oh, looks like these are building now, so that's cool. But this will refresh live. So all right, so the Spark rows, I'm gonna put the sales banner. Let's see, I want a single. I want a single horizontal container. Drop a horizontal at the bottom too. But I want that first one for my sales banner. So if I change that, that's not it. But I'll leave it there for now. We'll change it after. But I'll start putting together the dashboard. So we can go sales banner up in that top header. We'll just have that placeholder for now. And where that element will be sales by category. So let's see what number that is. Compare bars, number 4, I think. So I'm just gonna do category sales. And that one is just below the region. So I'll put in region first. So we got the region spark lines. Region. Let me think. All right, so I have this horizontal. So the region and states. So yeah. Region and map. That will be a lot taller than the others. So once those come in, we'll have those. And then below that was sales by category. So let me think, we want another horizontal here. So do sales by category. And trellis next to that. Then the dot, keep going down. The dot chart has its own long or wide section. So then we'll do this subcategory. Dots. Let's see how we're doing over here. So this one's on the manifest already. I don't know the exact order, but manifest generally would be later, where it's potentially already has the web element files, so it's building the like the T-Rex file next. Let's see. So that is sales banner. So yeah, it's got, this one was the one that it initially built, so these are kind of not really started. It says cloning starter. So it might just be, it should be, yeah, it should be all sub agents. So yeah, I don't know how extensive the updates get, so that's where it's at. We'll do, so we've got the sales dots and we need 2 more. So segment and ranking for manufacturers. So we'll drop one more horizontal segment and ranking. My footer can go there. Bottom. Sales dots needs a bit. Probably push that up a little bit. Sales dots. Footer doesn't need very much. Okay. We'll see how we land with that layout. The okay, so it's still, let's see, so all context gathered, write the extension files. So actually it just started saying it's going to write the files, so, but it does look like each one has been cloned at least. I wonder if it's got that initial clone. I think this starter, yeah. So it's still just the initial index file from the starter that's in there. Okay, it's checking against the real data. Then, yeah. Hopefully I'll have enough Fable finish this off, but if not, we'll be all right. And this it there. Maybe that's better. If I zoom in too much, then it just loses the layout. So I'll go to that point. It's saying it's building encodings and manifests for everything, updating encodings and manifest for the banner. So it looks like each one of the subagents is building now into the directories. So we've got each of the directories. Mm-hmm. Nothing significant over here still. Sorry. Long day. Let's check our timer. We got 16 minutes. Getting close. We don't have any Viz extensions built yet. So, looks like this one is in checking stage. This one's in rendering check stage. Once we're able to start building one of these, I'm guessing the rest will kind of finish while we're in desktop. Smoke check. Okay, it says all 9 files written. That must be full. Metric Spark rows. This one. Well, at least we'll be able to potentially fast forward this portion once the recording is completed. I can cut and fast forward this part later. We'll see. Watch the clock. 13:42. Looks like things are moving a little more. Still don't have anything here. Thinking about how this process is going, I probably maybe would see if it could create, like, use all of the agent sub-agents to generate one of the Viz elements first, and then one or two or three, like with multiple agents on each. And then once I had something to work with in desktop, then maybe it could continue on the rest, just to give me something to do while all of them are building. Switch the model back to Spark rows, saying it's rendering. This one's, I think it's taking captures to just validate. So it's got a lot of the validation in there. So that's going to take more than just building, obviously. But if it's at that point, I'm going to actually, okay, they're starting to populate. So that's number 4. I was just going to go start I'm going to pull some of these. So I'm going to go to that sheet and do the add extension. This one was number 4, category sales. It's going to be running locally. So I'll hit that and do compare bars number 4. I'm going to select the local treks. And I can see the URL is at localhost. Now I get the instructions. So put an item, value, and date. So the item I believe was category. I'm gonna put the date on. This is actually not the one I was thinking, maybe. I'll drop the sales on value and we'll see. Okay, so it needs the date because it's going to grab the change percent. So we can see right here, we've got 28.3 and 33.8. Sometimes the sorting won't be the same, but in this case it is. So now I've put that in there, go back to the dashboard, and it's populating here. It's wants to take up more room than is available. So I might do resizing of the full canvas. For some reason it's not fitting everything in there. I'll go small and then mark size. True values filter on there. So I'll probably have to actually prompt that to update. Let's see what else is completed. We got sales by region. So region spark lines. Viz extension. So, all right. It wants region, and then I'll do sales. This isn't like the usual nested structure. Interesting. Let me think. So this download must not have any of that in there. Interesting. It's gonna mess me up a little bit. Let me see. Download. It's this. It's got category. It doesn't have the region. I'm gonna swap the data source out, see if I can do that real quick. Too much pain. I'm gonna grab again the text file and the download data, which also came from the workbook. A little different way. So then I'll go to dashboard. Actually need to be in a sheet. I'll do replace data source, download with download data. Hit OK. Very odd. This is not working. So let's see. No, I don't want to be there. All right. Well, I'll just grab. Let's see. I'll just grab the official. I think some of the numbers are off on this version. That's why I was going with these. I need to do replace data source, the data with the Superstore, and then I can close. these two. Then I have location region. We'll put that in row. Value again is going to be sales. Date's going to be order date. And so we get the region, the spark line. I believe that one was set to month. So I'm gonna change that to month. And we get the little better, more character on the spark line there. So that's already in place on the region section. What it doesn't look like it has is I'm gonna go bigger here. Oh, this wants to take up a lot of space. What doesn't look like it has is the what is in the original are the nice like region outlines. So when you click, you can, yeah. So that highlights like that's the central. So it looks like all of the elements. So two more elements missing. Let's keep going. Then wonder if this just needs to be taller. Yeah. They're getting too tall. All right, we'll pull in the category. We'll go to the trellis, which is down here. Add the extension. It says we got 4 minutes. That'll be the 55-minute time limit. There you go. All right, we're looking at the trellis, local. Then, so we got dimension, date, and value. That's category, I believe. Let's open up the product. Category panel, then we got order date, the date, and sales on the value. It builds that, and that is looking like monthly. So I'll change the date to monthly. And we get the nice small bars we can see from the original. November 22. We got November 22. It's kind of the hovers a little bit. Weird it lands under. Again, November 22 for technology and furniture. Technology, furniture. And we got December of 25. Oh, the dates are off, yeah. But that's just in the data, so that's that. You can look at that one here now. I wonder if this even, yeah, it won't. Let's see if I give it the large size again. We'll have to prompt it to fix that up a little bit. Okay, let's move on to the dots. Probably out of time now. Oh, 2 minutes. We can get one done in 2 minutes, one more. So add extension. Local. Let's go dot timeline. And then we got item, date, and value. Item is subcategory. Order date, sum of sales. So that's annual. So let's change it. This is monthly. So we go monthly and we see a nice dot elements. And that's in there with the total or sum total bar alongside in the same row. Sales by segment, 57 seconds. Maybe we can get one more in. Extension. Segment. So no, segment is going to be the item, sales, and if I throw the date in there, it will compare. But it looks like it should be annual. It's again not populating it there. It looks like it's not here either, but that is the time. Let me just I'll take a screenshot of where it's at now. Sales banner is wrong. That was the placeholder. All right, then I'm gonna reset the timer. I wish I could have it go up, but let me see. I'll just start it at 60. See how much of that we use up. Okay. And I'll actually go and prompt right now. So update spark lines to show the background map. Use a new session. Not recommended, but that one actually just finished. So new session here, but I don't want the Fable again, so I'll get the Opus 4.8 and tell it to put the region outline in the background. This one I'll have work on. So category sales needed the percent change. And then Trellis, I haven't really looked at too closely. Just kind of small on the header. And we didn't have the map yet. Let me fill this one in. Yes, code. So the geo, I don't know if it's postal or state. State and then sales. And we get that nice and ready. So state and sales. And then I think if you add the city, just like in the original, if you hover, you get the top 5 city breakdown of that state. So if I add the city in, like it says here, include the city, it's optional, but you get that feature. So I got the state. I'm going to go sales value. I'll put city in the detail. We'll see if that works, but let me think. Oh, there's a city mark hard. So once I put that in, then it does populate the cities. It doesn't have the bars, the nice bars like the original does. We get, it looks like top 5 states down here. All right, looking at the full thing. More room for that. I don't know either if filtering. So the filter actions are a little bit more difficult for the Viz extensions because they don't talk directly with each other unless you have some type of dashboard extension or something that can coordinate. But we'll see if we can do something there. I don't know if I use this as filter, if it works. That did work. Excellent. So I would want that on for every item and we'll play around with that. Let's get this manufacturing one built in. One, is that number 8? Ranked bars here. Look like it was still updating possibly. So this might not be complete. We'll check. So the item and the value. So that was manufacturing and sales. And so we got other manufacturers. Okay. I click consumer, then I get filtered everything for the consumer. 12.5 changes, yeah. Manufacturing. This hasn't come through, but I'll check the agents here in a second. I think we're missing the header still. Let's get that one because it's kind of cool. So it's already got a Viz extension in it. So we'll, again, you still use the add extension. Another thing to note is if you change anything in the manifest or T-Rex file, then you must go through this process for it to pick that up. Otherwise, you won't see those changes. And that can be directly related to where your hosting is happening. So just be aware if you change from like localhost to hosted publicly, then you'll have to go through. It's actually, I'll show you here in a second. If let's do sales banner. You actually don't have to do that full thing. I do sometimes, but you, yeah, actually, I would suggest going through that process and selecting the same T-Rex, but with the updated manifest if you do. Um, so this is saying it wants date and a value. So this is going to be that cool top bar header. So I'll drop order date and sum of sales already there. I'll take this off. We got date and sum of sales. Saying the date needs to be a date field. It's in here, I believe, weekly. Yeah, weekly sales. So it's smashed here, but let's look at the dashboard, see if it spreads out there. So we got that. Not the exact same color, but pretty close. Get a little hover. So now everything was cool in the last one that I did, and I'm gonna see if it does it. Here is it in the top. Oh, it's another version that I had output rather than filtering for anything that was selected, it highlighted, but just in the header, so it had the header highlighted. If only if it were a date type filter, highlight that section. So it's kind of cool. It's got like little elements in it. I don't know if we can see that little grid going on in there. So I think let's see if we can get this going. I'm gonna have it create the headers as well. You can also set this as a default if that's the one you know you're going to use most. Okay, so let's look at these. So this was the percent change wasn't showing on the bars. This one was the region wasn't showing behind the amounts in the region rows. Both of those are still running. This is showing it's trying to tie out to the numbers, but I did change the data source to an updated Superstore set, so it's not going to be able to do that. Did hit 99% of the Fable usage. Then decisions waiting. Verify live. It's saying it does have the actions to filter. So we can try that. We're at 47. We pulled another 13, 14 minutes. And what we got 55 and 14. 60. This is where we're at with that much time. I'm having it build See if we can get the headers nice headers like these. And this row of filters and menu items. But we know these are already building as well. Of those elements. Lollipop is missing percent change. So I'll tell it I want that. Applause. Christmas yet. 4, 8. Okay, so the lolly. Give the example. It's always good. Then I don't like the background, how that hover background is. I'm guessing this is just a size issue again, like the other one where this were, yeah, with the size change, it gets some of those elements in there. But it's wanting more than it should need. Optional date binding, so maybe I didn't put the date in there. I thought I did. It's in there. All right, so this one was category sales number 4% change also. Let's see if it's going to be there. So this is, we'll go here. It won't just show up. You can do it a couple ways. There should be a reload button here. So I use that one. If it doesn't look, so still didn't put the percent change in here. It wants to do it. That might be why it's base years 2021. Let me see what year this is actually showing. Can't really see, but drop it into a new. See what years we have here. 23, 24, 25, and 26. So get around with that. Let's see. 23. Okay, that's what it is. It's just like the difference in the date because of the change in the Superstore data set. So we're not going to get the same values and it doesn't have all of the same dates. So that might be why this one is off. So I'll go to the, yeah, so let's do 2023 again. This one needed a lot more space too. Let's go. Maybe. Okay, there we go. On that dropped off the good stuff. Yeah, it just wants way too much space. There. All right, then I'm gonna say, I'm gonna tell it, I think. Uh, Let me look at this again. Not sure if I can tell it. I'm gonna tell it to be responsive. That should look closer at the size of its canvas and then scale it accordingly. We'll see if that works. That was for category. Now this one was region sparklines with the map background. Let's see it. See if it gets it. Hit the reload. I'll show the other way to do this too, is to just hit the drop down and then select that one again and it will reload. So two ways to reload. Looks like it's not showing it anyway. Okay. Interrupted. Create these filtering and menu items. Continue. I don't know what. I probably hit escape sometime. All right. So I guess we'll call that not complete, but a lot, pretty good progress towards the original. Not as good. Some things aren't perfect. But I'll see how much more time it takes. Probably won't record that whole piece. So this is right, 37. So I took another 23 minutes to get to this point. I don't know if tips can get stuck there. We'll see if the responsive in the prompt helps it. Save that yet, so I'll save that in the event. that was another thing that I thought was that one of my initial, when I tested the prompts, um, it also built the footer for the attribution, so I'll get that in there for sure. There was that one more prompt that I don't know. So this is saying, oh, this wanted to move it to a public hosting. Each extension and text for titles. Okay. I'm gonna pause the recording and then I'll just get a screenshot of the time. Cool. Thanks for watching. All right, so I wanted to show this. Don't check the time, 22 minutes. This finished and I haven't loaded it yet, but I'm about to look at it. It's the headers. It looks like it should be the headers and things. It was built as a dashboard extension. So I'll go here, and to do the dashboard extension, it's just under objects. So rather than like a container or a blank, drag over the extension, I'm going to just let it float for now until I choose. So it said to choose the filter bar, manifest, local tricks, under the banner. That's this filter bar. Okay. So filter bar. Chrome, section header, filter bar. There we go. Okay, so now I've seen it. I know I can drop it in the container. Below the header bar, expand it a little bit. Make it bigger. Nice and big. There we go. See if it works. Yep. Oh, these aren't the right dates. Yeah. So we'll just do all. No, I broke it. See if it comes back. Let's see. If I can reopen. That will actually even work, but we'll see. No. It fixes it. I'll have to prompt to get that going again. But that would have been the filter bar. 19 minutes. So that's another 40 on top of the original 55. So this was one of the versions that came, or this was the, when it was showing the like live updates. That was that. This is another run of it that I did last night. This is what I was able to get out. This is category sales. Let's see if it's working now. Well, nothing's working now. Let me see. I reload this. Hmm. Hmm. It's like maybe I can pull that off of each one. Yeah, okay. Mhm. All right, so we're gonna call this I think pretty good. Um, Ended up taking a couple hours, probably 2.5 hours to get all of the little formatting things in place once everything big was done. Um, so a lot of like getting the titles, getting things to fit. At the beginning, like the labels, both the labels wouldn't show. Fixing up some of that stuff. Um, I think it came out pretty close. Trying to get the attribution bar fixed here. Let's see if it loads. No. We'll see if I'll get that loaded. I don't know actually if this is going to even publish on public. I'll have to convert every one of the Viz extensions into another element to get that to work. So we'll see. Um, but overall, fun little experiment. Took a lot longer and a few more tries than I initially expected. But that's what happens with live demos. We gave it a try, and by the end of the day, I guess we're successful in making a pretty awesome attempt at Pradeep's amazing viz here. So thank you all for watching, and I'll get this. Hope you um, let me know if there's any type of viz you want to see or another workshop that you're interested in, and I can try to put it together. But thank you. Have a great night.